Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. It's so wonderful to see all of you here tonight, trying to figure out, as I am, how to end your suffering forever and achieve the most amount of happiness possible. And I feel so fortunate to be here tonight to be able to talk to you about this. But before I get started, let me begin by setting a motivation where we invite all sentient beings to be here, to be with us, to share this gift of the Dharma with them. Since it's a Mahayana teaching of the great vehicle, a teaching where we assert that we want to become enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings, as Lord Maitreya asserts in the Abhisama Alamkara, let's begin with that motivation. In the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Laike dan lu dan no jinge drubun da dan mi ke nan dan drawa gunji dranan ji tsamba dan je ge du da ji juden do. The last couple of weeks, we've talked about the two ways that you can generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The first way passed down from Lord Buddha, Shakyamuni, to Lord Maitreya and Asanga, called the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then we also talked about equalizing and exchanging self with others that leads to this beautiful mind that aspires to enlightenment. And we find in the Lamrim tradition a way to combine these two incredible practices to make the most powerful practice imaginable to generate this beautiful mind that's the only entrance into the Mahayana vehicle. The mind of bodhicitta, the mind that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, is the only entrance into that pathway that leads to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment, where all of the collections are fulfilled, our own needs are fulfilled, all sentient beings' needs are fulfilled. The only way to get to that goal is to have the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And with that mind, that kind of motivation, you become a bodhisattva. And as a bodhisattva, you see emptiness again and again and again, enough so that it not only gets rid of your grasping or apprehension, grasping at things as being truly existent, but you can also get rid of this kind of thing that's embedded within us, embedded within all of our perceptions, that sees things to appear as inherently existent. And the bodhisattva is able to not only get rid of this grasping at true existence in terms of the mind, the cognitive state that grasps at things incorrectly, through the bodhisattva path, the bodhisattva is able to not only get rid of that grasping, but also the appearance of true existence that is really the thing that reifies or makes us believe again and again and again that the way that we relate to the world makes sense. And we have to kind of undo that perception through a series of studies, through the ripening and liberating paths, which allow us to eventually completely abandon all the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. So this is why we spend so much time focusing on the different causes for generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and what the physical basis is, what the mental basis is, what are the causes, and so forth. And we do this because it's the key to our success. Putting others' needs before our own is the key thing that Buddha realized when combined with the wisdom realizing emptiness could bring a sentient being to the state of not being a sentient being anymore, which is a state of Buddhahood, where there's complete freedom from all of the things that we wish we were free from. Freedom from all of the 8 types of suffering, 6 types of suffering, and 3 types of suffering, but also freedom from blissless states. And that's what's really amazing about this. And we'll all achieve this because our mind is the kind of mind that can turn into a mind that knows everything and is in a state of bliss. We have a mind that'll do that. And that's what's really amazing. So in dependence upon your practice that I hope you're doing at home, This shouldn't be something that the Buddha said very clearly. The Buddha said that I can teach you all of these things. I can tell you the exact pathway that you'll need to know to get to the state that I am in, the state of cessation, where there's a cessation of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. But it's your job to put these things into practice. So the Buddha made this very, very clear statement that it was in our hands, that we were the ones that had to tame our minds. Our minds couldn't be tamed by someone else miraculously. They could only be tamed by someone else who showed us how to liberate ourselves. So the Buddha said, you must liberate yourself. I can't liberate you. So it becomes our responsibility, once we have the wisdom arisen from hearing, to kind of do something with these teachings. Because if we just hear these teachings and we don't do something with these teachings, then they're really not having the impact that they're meant for. Because the Lam Rim and the Lojong teachings, the mind training teachings, are meant to penetrate your mind in such a way that it starts to behave differently based on the analysis that you do about the way that things are. And if you aren't doing that analysis, if you're not taking the medicine, as the Buddha says that we have to do, then you can't be cured of this thing that we've had since beginningless time, which is grasping at things as being inherently existent. So when we are at the teaching and we start to see that we're like patients, and that the teacher is like a doctor and the Dharma is like the medicine that's being given, but then we have to put our effort in and actually take the medicine, and then recognize how great the Buddha's teachings are, that we have this medicine, and not be able to bear the thought of them leaving this world, because it's really the kind of medicine that will cure all the negative states that one could ever be in, and will give rise to only the most incredible, amazing, blissful states that are available to our minds. So this is something that we have to keep in mind when we're looking at these teachings, and we look at what these teachings give us the availability for. And we say that these teachings are so incredible and are such a jewel. I can't imagine them leaving this world. So I must listen to this intently. I must listen to this so well, because now that I'm recognizing that this is medicine for all beings in the universe, it's my duty to make sure that it's kept around. And the only way it's kept around is by individuals keeping it around. So when we talk about lineage and we talk about all these incredible, from Buddha to all the way to Khyentse Geshe Wandak, then it comes to us. And what are we doing? What are we doing to make sure that that lineage that was passed down to us from Khyentse Geshe Wandak and Khyentse Pema Jetsun, Ling Rinpoche, Trijang Rinpoche, Gen Uzer, and Gen Lachap, all these incredible teachers, Ong Rinpoche, all these incredible teachers that we hear within the lineage of instruction, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, of course, Lord Chen Rezig in our world. You know, we have all of these teachers, Geshe Dorje Damdu so kind, Geshe Umzela Geshe Aga so kind, that come to teach us and then come to give us these instructions that are the real medicine, the only medicine that will cure everything. And how rude would it be if they came and they spent all of this time, all of their lives, meditating and studying and doing things we couldn't even imagine doing, enduring hardships that bodhisattvas have to do. And when they come to us, you know, not exhausted, full of joy to present us with the truth that set them free, if we don't listen and put it into practice, what kind of folks are we? So this is how I think in terms of lineage. The lineage is in our hands right now. And when we look at the history of Tibet and how Tibet became so magnificent in terms of the realizations and the scholars, when it started to really change and become just so glorious and so just in depth, not that it wasn't in depth before, but for the place itself, was when the students of the Indian Pandits that came, that lived in Tibet, started to be able to realize the teachings themselves and hold the lineage themselves without requiring importing beings from India. And this is something that we as Westerners have to understand. that this lineage is in our hands. These instructions are instructions that make us into beings just like our teachers. And they've handed it to us so freely and so generously. So the responsibility, as the Buddha said, is with us. We can liberate ourselves. Our teachers can't liberate us. You know, if the Buddha, Shakyamuni, could just walk in this room right now and shake my hand, the Buddha could only teach me a little more than I know now. There's no magical, miraculous, spontaneous blessing that anyone can give me. The miraculous blessing that I can be given is the fact that I have a mind that's in the nature of clear light and unsullied. And there's folks out there who know how to make me find it, how to make me find its true nature, its emptiness of inherent existence. And when I recognize its true nature and recognize that everything around me is being manifested by it, then I can't be just so fooled. If I know my mind's empty of inherent existence and everything that is manifesting around me is being projected by my mind, then what about all the stuff around me? How much value can I give it with inappropriate attention? So this is really, really special that we have access to this information. So please put it into practice. Don't make it just some intellectual exercise. As Geshe Dorje Damdu said today, you can become the most intellectually amazing person in the universe. You could be the best soccer player. You can be the best physicist. You can be the most, know the 84,000 bundles of Dharma. But if you don't put them into practice, you're going to die ordinary. You will die ordinary, and you will just be another thing like a mosquito that died in the long run. Beginningless time, 100,000 years later. No matter what kind of accomplishments you've had that can leave such a bright stamp, these stars in our world that we feel were left this, that are so inherently existent to us. They're just memories and blips, and half of their ideas will become obsolete and be disproven, or they'll be disproven as having the qualities we thought that they had. Samsara is such a mess. This thing that we project is such a mess, yet we believe all of it and we think it's not a mess. And that's our problem. So we know we have this incredible Dharma that's in our hands. We've got teachers. We have qualified teachers. The Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-fulfilling jewel, is in our world right now. So what will we do about this? What will we do? And knowing that this is so precious, let's share it. Bring all sentient beings here. I said in the language of all beings, I'm proclaiming this Dharma. And now in your mind, imagine that you're inviting all sentient beings here to be your guests, to share this teaching, to be able to hear it. Because this teaching, this understanding of the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, and that putting others' needs before your own, having the utmost love and compassion for all sentient beings, is the answer to all of your problems, is just such an amazing rare gem that is just so unheard of in most ears of beings in the universe. So imagine that you bring all beings in the universe here, all hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods. Imagine that you're not leaving any sentient beings out. You're using your bodhicitta meditation to have no bias and to understand why bringing these sentient beings here is the answer to your own well-being, your highest level of well-being, because you've learned the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude and so forth through these incredible instructions and practices. So you've brought all sentient beings here to share this gift. And now get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. And this is a posture that is amazing, because it allows you to sit for longer periods of time. It allows you to align all of the kind of channels and your blood to flow properly. And it gives you the best shot to have a physical basis that will allow for your mind to be as clear as possible. You can really assess your mind. It's almost like you get into this position that allows you then to assess, okay, now I've physically done everything that I possibly can to create the conducive conditions for me to have a clear mind. In terms of the physical basis, because there's such a mind-body connection, but the mind isn't the body. So now, because the mind is running through, from this tip of the finger to the tip of my toe, the mind is active. If I can somehow get it into a place where it can kind of, have some consistency, and I can stay in that, then the physical won't be so disruptive to the mental. So this is just, we see this connection between the mind body that's inarguable. And if we can somehow use the things that we have to work with to help guide us towards our goal of clarity of mind, of course we're going to do that. So we get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, and we imagine that all sentient beings are following our lead, are admiring this posture, are seeing this as something that looks so stable and holy, and their minds are responding to it, and then wanting themselves to get into this posture. And they've heard about the benefits of this posture because I've spoken it in the language of all beings. You're imagining all of this. This is how you're doing meditation practice. You're literally imagining all of these things to try to build your mind up to be bigger and bigger and to be less closed in on itself and selfish. The self-centered attitude is what causes us, that's driven by self-grasping ignorance, to be so unhappy. So all of these things that we're doing are combating the thing which gives rise to our unhappiness, and will eventually get rid of the thing which gives rise to our unhappiness, and we'll be happy. But we don't know this that well. We don't really believe this that much. So we have to hear it again and again, and then do the experiment on ourselves, do the trials on ourselves, and then convince ourselves that this makes sense. And this is why the Buddha said, I can give you this information, but I can't convince you, of this to be the truth. You have to be convinced by your own analysis. You have to discover this truth for yourself. And this is what was so amazing. This is why the Buddha said, don't follow me because I'm Buddha, because you'll never realizing anything with blind faith. You have to discover this truth for yourself. So amazing. So imagine we're all discovering this truth together, so that samsara can empty, and lack of bliss in sentient beings can go away sooner rather than later. So we're in the 7-point Vairocana posture, and let's just try to get our minds down to a kind of a more calm state, one from which we can start to really generate the proper motivation to listen to these Lamrim teachings, to hear the teachings that are truly the medicine for all the problems that we've ever had. And we can figure out how to never make problems occur again, because samsara has no beginning but has an end. Nirvana has a beginning but has no end. So we can figure this out through this process of maturation, because we have a mind that can transform. So we're in the 7-point Vairocana posture, and we're going to do some breathing meditation. We're just going to get started with, half a minute or so. Breathing meditation, where we remember the 4 things that are so important. Our body posture, we just talked about the 7-point Vairocana posture. Our focal object is going to be breathing in, breathing out, and counting the breath. And we're also going to add another focal object into this mix of Buddha Shakyamuni in the front of us, about an arm length away, about an eye height, about the size of our thumb, beautiful and radiant, whatever form of Buddha Shakyamuni you normally visualize. But we're doing this with our mental consciousness. We're not trying to hallucinate with our eyes, Buddha Shakyamuni, because we have our eyes, if you look at the 7-point Vairocana posture, tilted down, kind of pointing at our nose. Study the 7-point Vairocana posture if you don't know it, and you'll see that the point of this meditation is to shut off the sense consciousness and to focus on the mental consciousness, which is observing an image. And the image is Buddha Shakyamuni, and the mental consciousness is also focusing on the breathing in and out and the counting. So your mind is focusing on these things. You're trying to get the focal object of the mind these things. So if for some reason your mind starts doing something, scattering or being excited towards objects other than the focal object that I just said is breathing in and out, and then counting at the end of the breath and visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni. If you're doing anything other than that, scattering, then that's a problem. If you're getting sleepy and the image is dull and it's going, you're breathing out and you're starting to forget, what number am I on? It's getting kind of darker and it's going from laxity to lethargy to almost asleep. That's a problem. So there's some couple problems you have. You don't want your mind going everywhere and you don't want your mind falling asleep. So this is the third aspect. So the first aspect is posture. Second aspect is the object of observation. And the third aspect is, what's a problem that can occur. Then the fourth aspect is the remedy. And what is the remedy? We've talked about this a lot. Applying the mindfulness is not forgetting the object. Introspection is the spy in the mind that's watching. You're kind of making sure there's like a cop, a police officer in your mind checking you to make sure that you're not speeding or driving too slow. Just checking. But it's not so tight that it's loud. It's not somebody that's, it's standing out. It's just a spy. A spy is not someone who's standing in front of you. A spy is secret. A spy is somewhere in a corner. So it's in the corner of your mind when we say this spy in your mind. So you don't want to be talking to yourself. Hey, are you doing this? Hey, are you doing that? It's just almost like a mirror that's reflecting what's going on, that has an alarm on it. And that alarm on it just goes off when the object that you've told your mind to focus on isn't what your mind is focusing on. So then mindfulness, which is, the decided thing that you're going to not forget, grabs the object and brings it back. When introspection, the alarm goes off that there's a problem. There's a problem. You're meditating and you're meditating on Buddha Shakyamuni, breathing in and out. And now all of a sudden you're thinking of the beach, or you're, hypnotizing yourself into drowsiness. The alarm will go off and mindfulness will bring that object back. You want the meditation to be clear, stable. You don't want it to have any features of anything that's just rock solid and clear and bright. So with these instructions in mind, we're not going to get to this point where we don't have excitement and lethargy or laxity and get rid of it in these few seconds. But here are the tools that you can take with you. As I said, please, you can only liberate yourself. I say, okay, now we bring all sentient beings here. I've taught over and over again, 7-point cause and effect and equalizing, exchanging self with others. Every week you come to the table to bring all sentient beings here. There hopefully is some nuance that's been brought into this discussion because of the realizations that you've had throughout your week. And realizations, I don't mean you realize bodhicitta. You realize, oh, well, wait a second. Maybe it doesn't make as much sense to cherish myself as much as I do. Maybe I should be a little bit less selfish. And then your mind looses just a little bit. So then when you get here on Thursday and we do this ritual over and over and over and over again, that looseness allows it to be a little bit more rich. And when we do this meditation and then you do it every day, if it's only a minute and a half, okay. When we do this 30 seconds, in a year, I would hope the 30 seconds that we do aren't as loud and sleepy. Because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to evolve. It's the only reason. It's the only reason. We're so fortunate that we have these teachings. And I don't mean to sound like I'm standing on a thing shouting, but we're just so fortunate. And please, we have this human basis. Please take advantage of it. There's so many things that we can do that just don't mean anything. And we can become the best of it, the best at it in the world. And it will die ordinary. We'll die just regular folk. And we've been given this teaching which will allow us to die so special or never die again. That's what the Buddha came to bring to this world, to offer an answer to all of our problems. We shouldn't look at it as any less beautiful and important than what it is. So we'll do a short meditation, breathing in and out. counting Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation. Ready? We're so fortunate to be here, to be able to have a way to remove the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. Now we'll imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing the entire merit field, has been containing all of the holy masters, which will help us to understand the Buddha's teachings. All of these masters that have realized the Buddha's teachings and can clarify them so well for us, because beings like myself need so many examples and so much clarification. And I need so many reasons to be given to me to understand what the truth of suchness is. And these masters are so, so kind to have so much patience with us and write so many texts to help clarify these things. So as we imagine Buddha Shakyamuni exploding into the merit field, we'll read the praise to the 17 Nalanda masters entitled The Sun Illuminating the Threefold Path, written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as we imagine this merit field filling in the space in front of us. And also not only imagining all of these incredible lamas as we read their names, also remembering that our root lamas are filling in, and all of the other lamas and all of the other deities and so forth are filling in the space of the merit field. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Khenser Geshe Wandak, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, and Demo Locho Rinpoche, and Khenser Lobsang Gyatso, and Geshe Dorje Damdula, and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin, and Umzila Geshe Aga, and imagining Jeffrey Hopkins, all holy beings, Lama Alan Wallace, all of these holy beings are filling in these spaces. And these holy beings became holy because of this unbroken tradition. So when we think of our teachers and our teachers, we end up at these Nalanda Pandits. And then when we go backwards, we end up at Manjushri, we end up at Maitreya, and then we end up at Buddha Shakyamuni. We're so fortunate. And Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-fulfilling jewel, first pays homage, of course, to the conqueror, the one thus gone, Buddha Shakyamuni, because all of these teachings are in an unbroken lineage from this incredible being that was so kind to come to our world. A sun illuminating the threefold path, born from great compassion, aspiring to help all beings, gods of gods. You have attained the Savior's state of abandonment and realization, and you guide beings through the discourse of dependent origination. O able one, the son of speech, I bow my head to you. I bow at your feet, O Nagarjuna, most skilled in elucidating suchness, free of elaborations, the essence of the mother of the Conqueror's sutras. Through the reasoning of dependent origination, in accord with Conqueror's prophecy, you initiated the supreme middle way. I bow to your principal son, Bodhisattva Aryadeva, most learned and realized, who has crossed the ocean of Buddhist and non-Buddhist philosophies, and is the crown jewel among those who uphold Nagarjuna's treatises. I bow to you, O Buddha Palita, who has reached the supreme of death state, and who has clearly elucidated noble Nagarjuna's intent, the final meaning of dependent origination, the profound point of existence as mere designation, as mere name. I bow to you, O Master Bhava Vega, who accomplished Pandita. You initiated the philosophical tradition wherein, while negating such extremes as the arising of truly existing things, one upholds commonly verified knowledge as well as external reality. I bow to you, O Chandrakirti, who disseminated all the paths of Sutra and Tantra. You are most skilled in teaching the profound and vast aspects of the middle way, the union of appearance and emptiness, dispelling the two extremes by means of dependent origination that is mere conditionality. I bow to you, O Master Shanti Deva, most skilled at revealing to the assembly of most fortunate spiritual trainees the excellent path of compassion that is most wondrous through lines of reasoning most profound and vast. I bow to you, O Master Abbot Chandarashita, who initiated the tradition of non-dual middle way in accordance with the trainee's mental disposition. You are versed in the reasoning modes of both middle way and valid cognition, and you disseminated the conqueror's teaching in the land of snows. I bow at your feet, O Kamala Shila, you who are having explained excellently the stages of meditation of the middle way view, free of elaborations, and the union of tranquility and insight in accordance with Sutra and Tantra flawlessly elucidated the conqueror's teaching in the land of snows. I bow at your feet, O Asanga, you who, sustained by Maitreya, were versed in disseminating excellently all Mahayana scriptures and taught the vast path, and who, in accord with the conqueror's prophecy, initiated the tradition of the mind only. I bow at your feet, O Master Basu Bandhu, you who, while upholding the systems of the 7 Abhidharma treatises as well as non-duality, clarified the tenets of Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, and mind only, foremost among learned ones. You're renowned as a second omniscient one. I bow at your feet, O Dignaga, the logician, you who, in order to present the Buddha's way through evidence-based reasoning, opened 100-fold gateways of valid cognition and offered as a gift to the world the eyes of critical intelligence. I bow at your feet, O Dharmakirti, you who, understanding all the essential points of all, both Buddhist and non-Buddhist epistemology, brought conviction in all the vast and profound paths of Sautrantika and mind only by means of reasoning. You are most versed in teaching the excellent Dharma. I bow at your feet, O Vimuktasena, you who lit the lamp that illuminates the meaning of the ornament treatises, wherein the themes of the perfection of wisdom stemming from Asanga and his brother were expounded in accord with the middle way view, free of existence and non-existence. I bow to you, O Master Haribhadra, who were prophesied by the conqueror as expounder of the meaning of the mother, the perfection of wisdom. You elucidated the excellent treatise on the perfection of wisdom, the 3 mothers, in perfect accord with the instruction of the Savior Maitreya. I bow at your feet, O Gunaprabha, most excellent in both integrity and scholarship, who, having excellently distilled the intent of 100,000 disciplinary teachings, expounded the individual liberation vows flawlessly according to the tradition of the Sarvasya Vada school. I bow at your feet, O Shakyaprabha, supreme upholder of discipline, who reigned over the treasury of jewels of the 3 highest higher trainings in order to disseminate the stainless discipline teachings for a long time. You excellently expounded the meaning of the vast discipline treatises. I bow to you, O Master Atisha, you who, having taught all the profound and vast traditions related to the words of the Buddha within the framework of the path of the persons of 3 capacities, were the most kind master disseminating the Buddha's teaching in the land of snows. Having thus praised these most excellent learned ornaments of the world, the excellent sources of wondrous and insightful teachings, may I, with an unwavering and mind unwavering and pure, be blessed so that my mind becomes ripened and free. By understanding the 2 truths, the way things exist, I will ascertain how, through the 4 truths, we enter and exit samsara. I will make firm the faith in the 3 jewels that is born of valid reason. May I be blessed so that the root of the liberating path is firmly established within me. May I be blessed to perfect the training in renunciation and aspiration for liberation, the total pacification of suffering and its origin, as well as in an uncontrived awakening mind that is rooted in infinite compassion that wishes to protect all sentient beings. May I be blessed so that I may easily develop conviction in all the paths pertaining to the profound points of the perfection and Vajra vehicles by engaging in study, reflection, and meditation on the meaning of the treatises of the great trailblazers. May I, in life after life, obtain excellent embodiments that support the three trainings and make contributions to the teaching that equal the great trailblazers in upholding and disseminating the teachings of Scripture and realization through engaging in exposition and meditative practice. May the members of all spiritual communities spend their time in learning, reflection, and meditation through proliferation of sublime masters who shun wrong livelihood. May the great face of the earth be beautified throughout all time. Through their power, may I traverse all the paths of Sutra and Tantra and attain the conqueror's omniscience, characterized by spontaneous realization of the two purposes. May I work for the welfare of sentient beings as long as space remains. Now we have the entire merit field and the space in front of us. Just sit with that. These are our spiritual, this is our spiritual family. It's in dependence upon these beings that we'll be able to reach the state of freedom. And they're here. We don't have the karma to see it, but whenever we call upon the merit field, these enlightened beings come and they surround us with love and eyes, and there's so much compassion. But we don't have the karma to see it. So they can only appear to us in the ways that our karma will allow them to appear. So may we pray that we can have more and more clarity and more connectedness with these beings so that we can in person receive teachings from them the way that Lama Tsongkhapa was able to receive teachings from Manjushri directly. May we have this connection. We don't say these names just to see if we can list as many names as possible. So we can have a direct connection to these teachings. So that in our future lives, we read these books. So that in our future lives, eventually, Nagarjuna will appear in front of us and teach us, clarify whatever part of the view we need clarified. Because it's such a profound view that the Buddha didn't know if anybody could get it. He sat silent for 49 days. Finding no one who can fathom this teaching in silence, I'm just going to retire to the woods. So don't think emptiness is easy and you can just simply understand it. We need all of these beings. We make supplications to these beings. We connect our mind to beings who are teaching the truth, because usually we connect our minds to things that don't teach the truth. Think about all the things we do all day. Our favorite television shows, our favorite sporting things, our favorite musicians, our favorite books that aren't Buddhism. Think about this. Think about how much energy. So now we have these beings we need so badly, because most beings don't do anything but teach us acquired wrong views. Most of the things we learn in this world and people teach us are right or wrong, and they give us more wrong views. And there are these holy beings that exist that won't do that. So we're trying to make our minds make sure that we get to see them and their writings, and not Married with Children or whatever show. I just dated myself, obviously. Or I don't know, what's hot right now? Someone said Ozark. Is that what someone said at the doctor's office is the one everybody needs to watch? Ozark, I think that. So that is what we're normally getting taught by it, a box teaching us that we can just go into a world that really, really doesn't exist, even more than the one that we make up, and then somehow just fill our minds with that. Or Tom Brady roast. That's what we're hearing about. We have a lot of health workers coming in. So we get a lot of suggestions because Lori, just had brain surgery. She needs to rest and relax. And we talk about taking classes in Buddhism. And they say, really, you should, maybe, try to find something, to broaden your horizons with. When we hear this, we think like that horizon is the smallest one there is. And the only way to broaden your horizons is to start to see things in a way that tallies with reality. And that's what the second turning of the wheel of Dharma is about. So we're connecting with these beings. We brought all sentient beings. So we're connecting with the refuge field because we need the refuge field to teach us. We're connecting with the bodhicitta field because putting others' beings' needs before our own is the key to us becoming a Buddha. Remember, becoming a Buddha, we become enlightened for our sake and others. So it's not like, oh, it's not for us at all. The reason we want to become a Buddha first is we jump from renunciation, where we think we want to emerge because we think samsara is so bad and we have to definitely get out. And then we find out that renunciation is not enough to like give us like the whole cake. We could have more than just not suffer. So then we say, oh, well, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in better. We're always, if we just recently saw a show where we were looking how humanity developed, how, basically mankind has developed, how technology emerged, how people started to have more and more things. It's because of man's desire to be comfortable, humans' desire for comfort. And then you get comfort and you're looking for more comfort. And this is how we went from, having a large brow or something, like barely knew how to make fire, to an iPhone, because we were dissatisfied so much, historically dissatisfied, that we've created more things and more things that we're dissatisfied with, that we feel aren't comfortable enough. So, wow, history teaches Buddhism. Buddha was right. Over and over again. Suffering of change. This thing that you think will bring you happiness doesn't. Why? Because it can't. Why? It doesn't possess it within it. Why? It doesn't inherently exist with it. Why? When your mind starts being able to go, because of this, because of that, because of this, then you started to fight that thing which is causing all of your problems. That thing which grasps at things incorrectly, which sees the world through a lens that whoever sees the self will at all times grasp at the self as I. This grasping leads to attachment to happiness. The attachment obscures the faults of what you think will make you happy. And you have this inappropriate conduct. And it makes one see that only that what's pleasing about the object, because you think it inherently exists as that. So you have inappropriate attention. So you see what's only pleasing about the object. And then you become more intensely attached to it. It's like drinking salt water. You become more and more attached. This compels one to grasp at the causes of happiness as mine. These things that will cause me to be happy, this is a consciousness. The mind consciousness is saying, yeah. Therefore, as long as there is an attachment to self, for that long, one will cycle in cyclic existence. Who said that? Dharmakirti in the Pramanavartika Karika. With a little bit of add-on so that it makes sense. Seeing the self will lead to seeing others. Bifurcating self and others leads to attachment and aversion. Associated with these, attachment and aversion, all faults such as killing, fears, and so forth ensue. What's bifurcating self and others? Splitting into two. This is me, this is you. This is me, you're over there. And then I have attachment and aversion when I see this is me, this is over there. And then it leads to all my faults. With definite attachment to self, no freedom from attachment to mine will be there. For one seeing the view of self as non-faulty, no cause will there be to eliminate attachment to self. So we have to look at this. We have to see the downfalls of cyclic existence and then say, hey, what's causing all these problems? And then Dharmakirti points it out. Nagarjuna points it out. Ceasing of karma and afflictions is nirvana. Karma and afflictions arise from conceptuality, inappropriate attention, which in turns arises from elaborations, self-grasping ignorance. Elaborations cease into emptiness. So what is that emptiness that allows elaborations to cease? Well, it was taught at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. And that's where the Buddha taught the Heart Sutra. So we're going to recite the Heart Sutra. But before we do, I just real quickly want to just give a quick briefing on what this is. This is the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. So we say the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma 3 times. So we can categorize the Buddha's teachings into these 3 kind of turnings of the wheel of Dharma. but we really have to be careful to not think the Buddha only gave 3 teachings. The Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths tons of times, but we say the first and maybe after the Heart Sutra, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha was walking around in a village teaching the Four Noble Truths tons of times. So we don't look at this in terms of chronology, and look at it in terms of what the topic was and what the Buddha was trying to get at. So the Buddha, when he first historically, came out of seclusion at the encouragement of Brahma and Indra, some gods who said, hey, there's an enlightened ones in this world. We've got to go get them to teach. And came to Buddha and said, please teach. And the Buddha, of course, was hesitant because he just had made the decision that he didn't think that anyone was going to get this concept. But of course, the Buddha's omniscient. So he knew everything a million years later like he did at that moment. So the Buddha is always manifesting as something and really as something else. So there's always a show going on. So don't get sucked into the show, get sucked into the teaching that's going on in the show. So then the Buddha then goes and teaches the Four Noble Truths in Varanasi, and he teaches that this is the superior truth of suffering. This is the superior truth of origin. It shows us how we're bound to cyclic existence. And then this is the superior truth of cessation. And this is the superior truth of path, and shows us how we're unbound to cyclic existence. Gave us the basic framework, but did not, within that first turning of the wheel of Dharma, pronounce the emptiness of inherent existence in a way that we can say, in the final view, that it is a teaching that doesn't need to be interpreted, a literal teaching. So the Four Noble Truths teaching needs to be interpreted, because the Buddha doesn't teach the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena in a way that, because the Buddha said the Four Noble Truths exist truly at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. So the Buddha wanted to give a framework. The Buddha was coming to this world with some really wild information, like, the caste system, well, it means nothing. You aren't stuck. Every single being in the universe, from an ant, to the highest of gods, has the same potential to become enlightened. Everybody has this potential to end suffering, to have a cessation of suffering, enlightenment, and in this turning, everybody has this ability to end suffering, to end the origin of suffering through a path, and then be able to achieve a nirvana. Everybody can do this. And this was revolutionary. This wasn't something that was, believed. There were all of these systems, and, there were a lot of systems that, just didn't give everybody in your lifetime, this potential that the Buddha came and said everyone had. But then at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha became a little bit more subtle and more profound, and taught the actual final view that he didn't necessarily feel was for the audience at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. The target audience at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma were really the holders of the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika view, which we find the Vaibhashika view is mainly the supported view of the Theravadan tradition today. We can say that the 18 Vaibhashika schools split up into different kinds of sects and had different teachers, and most of that we find is now the Theravadan tradition. So the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, so the target audience was the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika school. And in Vaibhashika and Sautrantika school, the self is empty of permanent unitary independence. They assert selflessness. They don't talk about emptiness. They talk about selflessness, the self not being permanent, unitary, and independent, the self not having autonomous, substantial reality. So there is the talk of the self of persons not existing truly, but doesn't get not existing autonomously, substantially real. But there isn't a talk about phenomena other than the self of persons as lacking true existence or inherent existence. So the Buddha started, like in the staircase of understanding of things, the Buddha first started at the self of person, and started to, at the coarse understanding of selflessness, negate what the object of negation of selfhood is. And that's, at the Madhyamaka view, an inherently existent self. So the Buddha started beating up this idea in terms of the self of person, in showing that the self of person doesn't have permanent unitary independent existence. It doesn't have autonomous substantial reality, and so forth. So the Buddha started to loosen the students' kind of conception of true self. Second turning of the wheel of Dharma is where the Buddha taught the final view. This is where the Prasangika school, the final view of emptiness school, states the actual literal teaching was given, and that's the Heart Sutra. So when we recite the Heart Sutra's explicit teaching is the lack of true existence of all phenomena, and the implicit teaching is on the 5 paths. So we see that both the 5 paths, which are the ripening pathways that we have to engage in, that contain all of that. And within those pathways, we have the liberating paths that we have to engage in. So we find that these two things are both necessary. The ripening paths have to kind of clear the way for the liberating paths to work. So we're not going to get into that detail. But what is it that about this second turning of the wheel of Dharma that makes it a literal teaching? And the Prasangika school says it's a literal teaching because it teaches ultimate truth. And anything that the main subject matter is ultimate truth, that's a teaching that's literal. So therefore, this is when we look at the 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma, at the Madhyamaka Prasangika view, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma is the literal teaching. And then we get to the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma. What's the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma? It's called the wheel of interpretation or differentiation. And we find within that the Buddha teaching the mind-only school view. And it was for people and Buddha nature. And Buddha nature in a way that could be either taken literally or interpreted. So the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma, Madhyamaka Prasangika says, needs to be interpreted. And I'm going to get to why. The 2nd turning of the wheel of Dharma, Prasangika says, is literal. Others assert, and within Tibetan Buddhism, the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma is literal in that Buddha nature is taught. And Buddha nature is taught in the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma in a way, I won't start quoting it, that there is a little Buddha with 32 major marks and 80 minor marks hiding inside of you, and you just need to reveal it. So there was this other emptiness, this idea that the mind possessed some kind of inherent existence. In the mind-only school, we say the mind, exists truly in the mind-only school. So the Buddha said you have this little Buddha inside of you that's just got to be unveiled. And the middle way consequence school, Madhyamaka Prasangika, says, yes, so this is Buddha nature that the Buddha is talking about. And it has to be uncovered. But what is Buddha nature? Buddha nature is using a resultant name to name a cause. And this becomes kind of complicated, so bear with me. But this is very important because I've been hearing a lot of wrong ideas about this. And this is very important to me. So we have this mind, we have this consciousness that's impermanent. And within the entity of all phenomena, pick this one, the mind, there is a permanent feature to it. That permanent feature is its emptiness of inherent existence. Follow me. So the fact that the mind is empty of inherent existence, it isn't fixed. The mind is in the nature of clear light, empty of sullied. Not sullied. Not means empty. Empty of sullied, not sullied. So because our mind is empty of inherent existence, it's not fixed in a way that's stained. The stains are adventitious. The stains aren't its nature. So these stains can be removed because of this permanent feature of the mind, its emptiness. Now, emptiness is not a cause because it's a permanent phenomenon. But it's something that permanently is the nature of our mind that makes it flexible, that makes it not stuck, that makes it so the stains are adventitious. The afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience don't need to be there, and they are caused. So when you remove the cause of the afflictive obstructions, they're gone. You remove the cause of the obstructions to omniscience, they're gone. Now the mind isn't hindered in any way, so it can move freely, because the mind's nature is just to know. Now it's not held back from knowing. The mind's nature is to, when you think about it, do you feel the best blissfully, or do you feel the best when you're being, hit with a thorn? So the mind can feel this. We know that this potential is there. We just have to seek it out, and we have to mature it into this state where there's no longer a self-cherishing attitude, there's other cherishing attitude. There's no longer self-grasping ignorance, there's the wisdom realizing emptiness. And those two things make our mind act totally differently, but it's the same mind. We don't get a new mind. This mind right here becomes perfect. So we have the seed of perfection in it, because we'd have to turn it in and get a new one if it didn't have that potential and it inherently existed. So our mind, the entity of our mind, has a feature which is permanent. It's not permanent. It has a feature, it has tons of features that are permanent. Our mind has an absence of an elephant standing in it. Our mind is absent of being chocolate. Our mind is absent of inherent existence. What's the object of negation? Inherent existence. What's the designated object? Our mind. What's the basis of designation? Temporal moments. Really? Wow. And we can make those moments, that mind that is in the nature of kind of clarity, luminosity, clear and knowing. Why is it clear? It's clear because it's a mirror that doesn't have stain on it, but you're in the dark. That's a problem. You can't see anything in a mirror, so it's got a light. Okay, you got a mirror with a light. You can see a reflection in it, but the mirror doesn't know anything. The mind is a knower that's a mirror that's lit up. What do you want it to see? What do you want it to illuminate? Suffering or bliss? So the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge is the key. When mixed with renunciation and bodhicitta, in terms of the explicit meaning of it, the emptiness of inherent existence, the wisdom realizing emptiness, to our achieving that state where our mind just experiences bliss, knows bliss, reflects bliss, illuminates, reflects, and knows bliss. Does that make sense? I think it does. I think when you start to make sense out of these things, instead of just saying the Buddha said this, the Buddha said that, blah, 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 when you start to try to make sense of these things, they just make sense. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. And we read that beautiful, I have to read, I have to read the thing real quick from Tsongkhapa. Here I say, so Tsongkhapa, one of the ending parts of the Lamrim Chenmo, makes a homage to the Heart Sutra. I'm going to read only some of it. Here I say, going to the most beautiful mountain. So in imagining, as we're reciting the Heart Sutra, we have the merit field in front of us. Imagine that we're on Vulture Peak Mountain. Imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is there. And imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni blesses the minds of Avalokiteshvara and Chenrezig, and they start to act as puppets in a show to explain the ultimate truth, to give the literal teaching, to give the thing that's not figurative, to tell the Buddha really meant it when he said things don't inherently exist. They don't have this nature that we think that they do. Nothing, no phenomena, even these five aggregates, not just the self of person, even everything else, that's empty. Going to the most beautiful mountain, the Lord of mountains, called Vulture Peak, shaking the universe in 6 directions and magically filling 100 pure lands with light, the sage gave forth from his magnificent throat the great mother from whom all noble children are born, the incomparably eloquent perfection of wisdom, the heart of sutra and mantra paths. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, said to Venerable Shariputra, "O Shariputra, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound..." Did I skip a line? No. How should a son or daughter of noble... My papers landed, and I thought that I missed something. I'm going to start here. Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, "O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Real quickly, the Prajnaparamita mantra here, if we recite this in just this mantra, it's important that we can engage in a meditation that will leave imprints in our mind. And I think it's really effective. So we see the Teata Om. The Om has three syllables, A-U-Ma. And we think of it as body, speech, and mind. We think of it as the pure body, speech, and mind of a Buddha that has been achieved through traversing the five paths: the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. So the Buddha's body, speech, and mind were transformed through five paths to a pure body, speech, and mind from an impure body, speech, and mind. So the Buddha had proliferating Buddha nature before being Buddha, therefore became a Buddha. So the Buddha went from an impure body, speech, and mind, because the body, speech, and mind are not inherently exist as impure, to a pure body, speech, and mind, because transformation is possible, because the mind doesn't inherently exist. So the Buddha's Om isn't like our Om. The Buddha's Om is perfect. Our Om is imperfect because it's sullied with the stains of the self-grasping ignorance. It's sullied with afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience. So how do we make our Om, our A-U-Ma, our body, speech, and mind, like the Buddha's body, speech, and mind? Perfect. We go through the paths that the Buddha went through in order to perfect his or her mind. So we look at Gate. This refers to the first path, the path of accumulation. Gate refers to the path of preparation. Paragate refers to the path of seeing. Parasamgate refers to the path of meditation, and Bodhisoha refers to the resultant state of Buddhahood. So the Bodhisoha is the Om that the Buddha has right now. The Buddha has the pure body, speech, and mind. Bodhisoha, the Buddha has achieved enlightenment. The Buddha has achieved Sugata, the one gone to bliss. There's two states there. The Buddha has bliss and has gone, it's permanent. It's something that will always be there. So how did this happen? It happened through Gate, path of accumulation, Gate, path of preparation, Paragate, path of seeing, Parasangate, path of meditation, Bodhisoha, path of no more learning. And this occurs, what happens here basically, and generally speaking, and there's a lot of ways we can look at Abhisamalankara and so forth, I encourage you to do so, is that for the regular Bodhisattva, he or she generates bodhicitta. And at that moment, when you get bodhicitta, you become a bodhisattva. We're not all bodhisattvas already. It's not true. Bodhicitta is the qualifying factor of a mind for someone who has bodhicitta. So if you have bodhicitta, if day and night you seek transcendent Buddhahood in order for everyone else, and you don't think of other things, you just think of doing that, then you are a bodhisattva. And you enter the first stage of that when your mind first generates that and and thinks of it all the time at the path of accumulation, that first gate. And then you go through these 3 stages of the path of accumulation on this gate, where you're starting to understand emptiness and more in a way arisen from analysis. The wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. Well, on that ground, for the regular bodhisattva who just generated bodhicitta, he or she becomes more acquainted with emptiness in terms of analysis. And then once he or she gets to the kind of this peak level of a concentration state, this really amazing concentration of all phenomena at the 3rd level of the path of accumulation, then the path of preparation, he or she goes through 4 stages, 4 levels, where they become more and more acquainted at a subtle level with a conceptual understanding of the realization of emptiness, with an inferential valid cognition of emptiness, where duality becomes less and less and less, to the point where the generic image of the emptiness of the mind is even, there's the duality of emptiness in the mind becomes so non-apparent that it seems like the generic image isn't even there anymore. And then one, through this process of getting to this subtlest point you possibly can conceptually, a yogic direct perceiver somehow hops in the mind, is triggered somehow by this generic image, triggers the subtlety of this final conceptual kind of signs and reasoning, the sign of dependent origination, the son in the remembering mother. The sign of dependent origination becomes so convincing that one can directly perceive the lack of inherent existence. And you aren't directly perceiving anything other than the lack of inherent existence, but you're perceiving that middle. You aren't perceiving non-existence. You're perceiving something that's unexplainable, but we only know what the object of negation is, and that's inherent existence. So you're perceiving not inherent existence of the mind. And it's really amazing when we look at what's going on in this. So the second gate is that preparation, where you're conceptually getting to the point where you get to paragate, where you see emptiness directly with a yogic direct perceiver and have a uninterrupted path and a path of release, and you are a bodhisattva on the first ground at that point. When you've seen emptiness directly, you no longer have the acquired afflictions, these wrong views that you've been taught. I was talking about, where you've learned things in this life that are contrary to reality, but you believe them. All those things that you acquired are gone after you see emptiness. Now you have to work on the things that, since beginningless time, have been kind of mucking up our minds. So when we recite this mantra, think about this evolution of our mind from one that grasps at things as being inherently existent, a mind that perceives them to appear as inherently existent, a mind that cherishes itself more than others, to one that loves everyone, has no bias, cherishes other more than oneself, knows the nature of reality in such a way that one can see ultimate and conventional truth simultaneously. And this is something that only a Buddha can do. So when you think about this mantra and you're reciting it, gate, gate, para, gate, you can do that. Or you could think about, the path of accumulation. That would be bodhicitta. How do you get bodhicitta? The 7-point cause and effect, equalizing, exchanging self with others. How do you see emptiness? What's the object of negation of emptiness? I need to understand emptiness first by hearing and studying just a ton. Never be satisfied with partial instructions, and then analyze those not partial instructions, and then I'm going to be able to break through to a meditative state that realizes these things in dependence upon my analysis. Really, wow. And then eventually, because of all of this stuff that I'm doing through this pathway and moving away and clearing the way of the self-cherishing attitude and all my wrong ways of being and my ethics that don't allow me to concentrate and my lack of concentration that doesn't allow me to see emptiness. And once I move those problems out of the way, a yogic direct perception can happen that is preceded by an inferential valid cognition. So it's important to really, a lot of people like to talk about Buddhism, but you start to really figure out what Buddha brought to this world. The Buddha didn't bring to this world what everyone else brought to this world. The Buddha brought something very, very special, and that's the nectar. That's the thing we need to take the essence of day and night. Teata om gate gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisoha. 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 Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. You should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. If the Bodhisattva should, we need to find out what this means. We need to make our minds are what's trained. All paths are mind. All paths are mind. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound Prajnaparamita to be able to experience day and night the perfection of wisdom, which is the mother of the Buddha, gives birth to Buddha, gives birth to hearers, gives birth to solitary realizers, birth to nirvana, abiding nirvana, birth to non-abiding nirvana, mother of the conquerors, emptiness, the knowledge, the perfection of wisdom that gives rise to the cessation of self-grasping ignorance that then gives rise to no more samsara, separation from samsara. Amazing. When the Blessed One arose from that samadhi, he praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Now imagine Buddha comes out of the samadhi. He's been blessed. He's now taken the show back over, right? The show, he gave the show to Shariputra and Chenrezig. Now Buddha releases them from their, their trance where they've been speaking for him, and then confirms that what they're saying is true by saying, good, good. Yes, that's right. That's the meaning. That's the ultimate truth. Nothing inherently exists, but everything exists. Inherent existent and existence do not mean the same thing. And you have to be able to posit karma working and dependent origination working and emptiness of inherent existence working. And appearances should get you to see the mode of existence, and then emptiness should get you to see that things exist. And then if you can figure out this, then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When you realize this profound Prajnaparamita, this says the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son or noble family. Thus it is, O son or noble family. Thus it is. What you just told Shariputra, that's correct. Everything you just said to Shariputra, yes, that's true. Nothing has inherent existence. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. So if everyone practiced what you just said, this would make the Buddhas so pleased, because all the Buddhas want is for you to go to bliss, you to be the one gone to happiness. That's why they would rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly in the world, with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. You see how much meaning there is, richness and practice there is for us to just taste, drink. Aga samara jasanda rasamara yave de adon gati gati paragati parasangati badiso papa concho sonji gai dembe doji she bodoji me bodoji shewa doji jagi baji medo biji danji jedin gori soa kerindo jaje joji wada medon ne bejan andro wada ndo badun jin bonzon joji joshi de janden da de le sho. We'll make a mandala offering. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm happy we presented what we presented this evening. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Iram Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirata Yame. Sanjay Chadan Zaji Janan La Janju
badu da ninja zuji dagi juni dagi chushe jibe sanaji drola benche shanje juba sho sanje jadan zaji janan la shanju badu da ninja zuji dagi chushe jibe sanaji drola benche sanje juba sho sanje jadan zaji janan la shanju badu da ninja zuji dagi chushe jibe sanaji drola benche sanje juba sho. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. And that's from Dignaga's Pramana Samuccaya. The one who eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and profound, who eternally shines forth the forever noble light rays. To you, the Buddha, I make prostrations. And that's from Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika Karika. Dharmakirti was so amazed by Dignaga's being able to put so much into one stanza that he wrote an entire chapter, hundreds of stanzas, about what Dignaga meant by the one who's transformed into a reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sugata, and protector. To you, I make prostrations. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. So very important to me that there's clarity around what selflessness is. I just, this whole week, all I've been hearing is self doesn't exist. So there's no problem. Self exists. Self doesn't inherently exist. Self exists merely through imputation, independence upon a collection of some sort. Dependence upon something. Through the power of the mind. Merely through the power of the mind. But not the same nature as the mind, the things out there. There's externality that you're experiencing, I'm experiencing, we're collectively creating. But my experience of it, my labeling of it, is what brings it into existence as this or that. My dog doesn't think that my shoe is anything but a toy, doesn't try to put it on its feet, doesn't think it's a shoe, thinks it's a toy. It's merely from the side of the subject that things are brought into existence as this or that. But they exist because those around you all concur that for the conventional world, that these things are suitable to be labeled as this or that. They can be merely designated as this or that. And if you can't, you have to be able to function, you have to be able to posit functionality and cause and effect while positing emptiness. You have to be able to posit a self that goes from life to life to life, and that becomes a Buddha, and that becomes a self that's in nirvana, a self that has a cessation of suffering. If you can't come up with what that is and what selflessness is at the same time, you are not following the middle way, and you're falling into nihilism by saying that self doesn't exist. And if you say that the self exists as inherently just as mind, you're falling into substantialism. And if you fall into either of those things, you're falling into both of those things, and you don't have the middle way. And if you don't have the middle way, everything's a cause for samsara. All of the five perfections, except the sixth, are blind without the sixth. Generosity is blind without wisdom. Ethics is blind without wisdom. Just cause more samsara. Right? They're so strange. Patience is blind without wisdom, more samsara. Patient, you could be the most patient person in the world without wisdom, you'll get more suffering. Contaminated happiness, maybe. It'll wear out real quickly if you don't have the wisdom there. Effort without wisdom, blind, will give you samsara. Meditation, concentration levels, make yourself the calmest mind in the world, will give you a calm samsara, will give you a different warden in your jail that's maybe nicer to you, but you'll still be in jail unless those five perfections are unblinded by the wisdom realizing emptiness. All of these ripening paths are for the sake of realizing emptiness. We have to understand this point. And this emptiness is a subtle point that's made that allows us, when understanding it, to stop craving and attachment. Attachment leads to existence. The Buddha said, from craving, there's existence. So everyone thinks, oh, I just got to get rid of attachment and just stop attached to things.
But attachment has a root. And that root is self-grasping ignorance, grasping at myself and all phenomena as having a status that it doesn't. And until you get rid of that ignorance, you can suppress all you want, but you'll be attached again because you cling to things as being inherently existent and having some nature that is worthy to think about inappropriately and then hate or love. Because you'll think from its own side, those atoms and those chromosomes and those molecules, whatever all that stuff science says over there is going on, is the thing that you label it as and has qualities you think it does, and it doesn't. So your starting point is so screwed up. My starting point is so wrong. And we've got to figure out how to make the starting point right. And if we make the starting point right, what does it say in the Rice Seedling Sutra? If ignorance ceases, karma ceases. Karma ceases, consciousness ceases. Consciousness ceases, name and form ceases. Right? So we see, name and form ceases, the six sources cease. Six sources cease, contact ceases. Contact ceases, feeling ceases. Feeling ceases, craving ceases. Craving ceases, grasping ceases. Grasping ceases, potential existence ceases. Potential existence ceases, then birth ceases. Birth ceases, aging and death ceases. I mean, really, we look at it's so clear when we look at this. So we look at the reversal of the 12 links of dependent origination. We just have to stop the ignorance. And then we get to that, then we won't have attachment at the time of our death, which causes us to be born in samsara again. There's one projecting karma that's going to make us into a realm. One karma. You got one shot for your next realm. That's going to throw you into a realm in your next life. At the end of your life, you're going to be dying, and there's going to be a karma that manifests. This is the loop. They say that, having a human basis is like a blind turtle every 1,000 years coming up on to the top of an ocean. And on this ocean, it's a rough ocean. And there's a yoke, like a wooden yoke that goes on an oxen or something, right? That's floating around in the whole ocean. This blind sea turtle comes up and just happens to, by chance, stick its head through because of every cause and condition that needed to be exactly right was there at that moment. And then that head went through the yoke. Every 1,000 years, a blind sea turtle goes up, isn't even intending to, and it just happens that way. This is the rarity of what we possess right now. We have this human basis, and it didn't come about so easily because of this example I just gave. So think about sometime you had some thought that was good enough to make you a human at the time of death, and that one thought made you a human. Do you know that you will have the right thought at the time of death? If you don't know for sure, that's a problem. That's a real problem. And I don't know that. Therefore, if I'm alive when I wake up tomorrow morning, I will try to combat self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude. I make this commitment to you that I will try to do that tomorrow morning. And I hope that because of our teachers' kindness and have all the time that they spent with us, I hope you can make that commitment to me too. I hope you can make that commitment to Khyentse Geshe Wandak and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Really. Unless you like suffering and hate happiness. If that's the case, I don't think you'd come. So anyway, we're so fortunate. I think I'm out of time. So we'll do a dedication. And I want to say thank you for your patient listening. And I hope it's of some benefit. And please put these teachings into practice. And we'll say a prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. And not for a sectarian way, but just because, as I said, our spiritual family, who these teachings are passed down through, Lama Tsongkhapa was so clear and clarified so many of the most difficult points that nobody else was able to really clarify in such a way that somebody who wasn't so sharp could get and not make a mistake on, and be fed by a spoon with Gerber baby Buddhist formula to us to understand the liberating and ripening paths. So it's for this reason I pray that Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings stay in this world, just as Lama Tsongkhapa is so delighted that the teachings have remained in this world, related to Nagarjuna's holy tradition. And we see this in the supplication that is made in that same prayer that I was reading to you about that. It ends with the treatises of the noble Nagarjuna and his followers give good explanations of the way to search out the correct view, and are for the sake of the conqueror's teaching remaining for a long time. So for the sake of the conqueror's teachings, may Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings remain for a long time. So this is what we should be thinking about as we're reciting this prayer, and recognizing that Lama Tsongkhapa was so kind and feeds ignorant sentient beings in very, very easy bites the truth of suchness and bodhicitta and renunciation. So please, may these teachings flourish, because if beings are anything like me, we need all the clarification and help that we can get. And if these teachings aren't in the world, we have no chance. Though he's the father, the producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Endraketu, he made this vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through the truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied, through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practice according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for the beings in doctrine, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without a contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanation of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting the two stages practice, he allied without class the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. The differentiation is Ananda was with Buddha as an attendant. During the 80,000 bundles, Buddha didn't have the attendant for the other 4,000, the first 4,000 bundles of teachings. So some folks just say, well, we only consider 80,000 because Ananda was there for all of them. Some say 84,000, just a little technical point. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish by the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings path, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayana. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish, in short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. And concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense, is strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular the essential teachings of Venerable Lizandrapa, to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I made, may they be purified by this mantra of Vajrasattva, imagining that all of your body, speech, and mind, and my body, speech, and mind, and any errors that were made, and any non-virtue that was created, are purified with syllables ascending, descending on us with the syllables of Om Ahom in the colors of red Oms. White Oms, red Ahs, and blue Homs, purifying our body, speech, and mind. Om Benza Sato Samaya Manavaya Benza Sato Say Nomajista Dida Meva Vasu Tokaya Meva Vasu Bukaya Meva Anaraja Meva Vasu Savazini Meva Raja Savakam Suja Make it Chian Kuru Hom Ha Ho Bhagavan Savatata Kata Pentamame Muka Pensa Baba Mahasamaya Sapa Ahom Ve. May Paul and Lama always protect us. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jikala Jamo Amajaja Junjo Rilla Rilla Om Jo Om. Any obstacles that you have to meeting with the Dharma, may
they be removed by the power of this mantra of Drapo Sundre. May your karma connect with these wrathful protectors, and they help to protect you from being in a leisureless state where you can't meet with the Dharma. Om Vajrapani Harya Griva Garuda Om Ve. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised the supreme by all the conquerors to traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. So being in a leisureless state, a life of leisure means you have a life where you can practice Dharma, you can practice religion. A leisureless state is a birth, and think of all the different births, worms and so forth, where you can't practice Dharma, or even in the human state where you won't have a chance to hear the Dharma or understand the Dharma and so forth. You've got to thread that needle at the time of death to be able to produce a state like this again. And we look at how rare that actual potential is. We need to be able to really put these teachings into practice. And practice the way that our teachers have shown us how to practice if we want to have a chance to not have to experience this 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, and 3 sufferings endlessly. And that's Pure Land surrounded by snowy mountains. You are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stand until samsara's end. And now in conclusion, we'll do the prayer of supplication that I wrote to Namgyal Khenser Geshe Wandak a year after his passing, that I had started in the beginning when I met him. I started writing this. It was going to be a long life prayer, and impermanence beat me to it. All composite things are impermanent. This became a supplication to Rinpoche to come back instead of one for him to stay. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears and elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who they really are. May all the merit created from giving this teaching, and may all the merit that you've created from listening to this teaching lead us to complete Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And may we dedicate our virtues in the same way that holy beings dedicate their virtues, so that they have the most effectiveness and connect us to a complete path that gets us to Buddhahood swiftly. Thank you so much, everybody. Remember, the Buddha doesn't wash away negativities or give us realizations. We have to practice and liberate ourselves. You have the tools to do so. Thank you. I appreciate you, because so do I.